Let's have a look at how we execute queries or select statements in an application. So let's head to the Data Dragon module, task, internal, and again this is where all of the SQL tasks reside in the application, and I have three general purpose query commands. I can query champions, I can query champion skins, and I can query realms. So if we take a look at the header file, this is just like any other command. It accepts a database, which the SQL is executed through, and a statement builder on the initializer. If we look at the implementation, again, it's very much like all the other commands, SQL commands. I set the table to the champion table because I know I'm going to run a query against that table because of the name of the command. And all of the heavy lifting is done by the superclass in the execute query method. So I simply delegate this to another method, a private method called execute query with projection. When you execute queries, there's a number of properties that you can set. One of those is the projection, and those are the columns that you want to retrieve as part of the query. If this is nil, what you'll get back, what you'll use by default, the statement builder will build this, is a wildcard projection, which means give me all columns. Now that's generally considered bad form, and you should always pass a projection to your queries. You don't have to though. So if we look a little bit further here at what happens, the statement builder will build a select statement for us given a table, the projection that we passed in, an optional selection, which it will use to generate the where clause if there is one. And we didn't really talk about this, but you can also generate queries that use group bys and halvings. And then, of course, if we want to add a sort or an order by clause, we'll pass the sort along. If there is a where clause, we'll also pass selection args and set those up in our command. And I'll use either the execute query with arguments in array if I do have parameters to bind in. Otherwise, I'll use a shorter form, which is just execute query. And in both of those cases, this returns a result set. When you perform a query, you want the results of that query returned to you. And an FM result set is sort of like an array of dictionaries. It is there can be one or more rows. If a query results in 0 rows, then there won't be any rows in the result set, but assuming that it does, you'll get one or more rows back in your result set, and each row will contain values for each of the columns in the projection.